I read 12 books for the month of June. This is my June wrap up. Welcome to Novel Beginnings. It pains me to say that my least liked book was an Abby book. After I wrapped up The Night We Met last month, I wanted to read other books in her bibliography, and I had not read anything from her first trilogy, which is The Friend Zone. And thus I picked up the first book, The Friend Zone. We meet Kristen, this very vivacious, a very passionate girl who loves her friends deeply. And she meets Josh, who is her best friend Sloane's fiance's co-worker slash friend. They are instantly drawn to one another the moment they meet. However, Josh wants to have a big family of his own, and Kristen cannot provide that for him. For me, I did not like my characters in the book. I felt that Kristen had this manic pixie girl energy, which was a little too much because every time she was on page, she was so volatile. That didn't work for me. And Josh was okay, he wasn't very memorable, and I also think that chemistry was not so memorable for me. The other thing I did not like in this book is that, without giving away anything, any spoilers, we were explicitly told about a certain condition, a certain eventuality with our main character, and towards the end, or in the to give the characters their happy ending, that aspect, that attribute was completely taken away just to give them the conventional happy ending. I'm not against happy endings. I want that. This is why I read romance books. But I felt that it felt a little dishonest because there was a build up to it. You are giving me a character with a certain characteristic, and towards the end, just because, a conventional happy ending is what we're looking for, I don't know, it didn't work for me. I gave this book 2.5 stars. The next book I read is This Story Might Save Your Life by Tiffany Crum. And this is about Benny and Joy. They are best friends and they have a podcast. One morning when Benny shows up at Joy's house where they normally record their podcast, he finds broken windows and shards of glasses everywhere. And he feels the worst, that maybe Joy and her husband have been kidnapped and they're missing. We get two perspectives in the story in this book, and one is of Benny, where we are seeing the ongoing investigation of finding where did Joy go, where did her husband go. And we see Joy's POV, where she reminisces about how she and Benny met, how they became friends, how they met their respective spouses, and how they came up with the idea of doing this podcast. This book was very mid for me. I know it has garnered a lot of good reviews, and mostly I found that people who gave raving reviews to this book had this as an audiobook, and if I had that, maybe I would have given it a higher rating. But I read the book, and to me it was just okay. I think the bad guy, the villain of the story, if you will, the moment this character was introduced, you could see from a mile away that this is going to be the antagonist of the book. And the thriller part of it, I don't know. I felt there were a lot of red herrings thrown our way as we are trying to investigate and find where did Joy go, where did her husband go. There were certain behaviors and mannerisms that we were alluded to, but they did not eventually lead up to anything. I mean, okay, I can look past that, but I don't know. It was just a mid book for me. I gave it a 3.5 stars. Yeah, it's summertime and I wanted to read more romance books, and I picked up It's a Love Story by Annabel Monaghan. This is my first time reading this author. This is about Jane. She started her career as a child artist, teenage actress, and she was in a very popular TV show. And now when we meet her, she's 30 or in her early 30s and is still in the industry but working as a creative head, as a creative executive. She has this script with her and she really wants to make a movie out of it, but her bosses are not yet convinced. So she throws in a white lie that she knows the current pop star, mega pop star, because they worked together, and she will convince him to write a song for the movie. In comes Dan Finnegan, her co-worker slash frenemy, and they kind of decide that let's travel to Dan's hometown where this mega star is going to be performing. We get close proximity, we have found family. It's a very feel good kind of a book. What I really liked about this book is that our character Jane has a character arc. When we meet her, she's kind of uptight, but as and when she spends time with Dan, she kind of loosens up a little bit. And I did like the fact that when she was meeting Dan's family, which is what she's missing in her family, because she has a single mom and she's a single child. She loved the gregarious nature of having a large family, a lot of siblings, and I quite found that aspect quite endearing. And this was a fine book, much like The Story Might Save Your Life. It was well written, well paced. There was a certain maturity in the relationship between Dan and Jane, which I really appreciated. And I gave this book 3.75 stars. The next book I'll talk about is Maurice by E.M. Forster. This was my IRL Book Club's pick. This book was written in 1914, and E.M. Forster wanted this book to be published after his death because when this book was written and the time period it's set in, homosexuality was illegal. I think in 1967 in England it became legal, was legalized. This is a story of Maurice, and when we meet him, he's a young boy who goes to a prep school, then he went to a public school, and then he went to Cambridge after that. On the face of it, he is a conventional young man. However, he is gay. And he is grappling with his sexuality because he knows that society will not allow him to embrace this part of himself. He knows he has to limit and put himself and confine himself in the box that the society and family has set out for him. When he goes to Cambridge, he meets Clive Durham, and they have a platonic relationship. While he is with him, he realizes he reads more, and he becomes more audacious. However, Maurice is wanting more in life. He doesn't want to hide, but that frustration that society will not let him do that, it sometimes pushes him over the edge. E.M. Forster was adamant that he wanted to give a gay man a happy ending, and he did. I loved the prose of this book. It was beautiful. You don't get to read books with such eloquent language anymore. And what I like that E.M. Forster doesn't just hand it to you. You have to, it is not puzzling or taxing. It's just that there's so many layers as you read it. It was such a delight to read. I mean, I tabbed so many sentences, and the pining. I'm telling you, they had a platonic relationship, but still you felt that love, that anguish. It was so palpable, and I loved reading that. I never knew I would swoon reading without any intimate scene, any spicy scene. I was swooning, and I loved reading that part. I loved how it was a commentary of society at that time. I loved that even our protagonist, Maurice, I want to say he's guilty of practicing elitism and classism, because that is also mentioned in the book. I truly enjoyed reading it. My little problem was that the ending, the last quarter of the book, I'm very happy the ending that E.M. Forster wrote for Maurice. However, the character that I had painted in my head for the majority of the book, his mannerisms and his behavior at the end, I wasn't able to kind of put them together. This book was revised. It had a lot of revisions over the years, and maybe I felt I was missing something, and I desperately wanted an epilogue. And I think if I look up, I might get one. I really wanted to know what is the next that happened in Maurice's life and his chapter. So this was a fantastic read, and when I say the prose was beautiful, it was not too flowery. It was just stunning, and I loved it. And again, I really relished the prose in this book. The next book I want to talk about is Skin by Tayari Jones. Set in 1941 in a place called Honeysuckle, Louisiana, we meet two motherless girls, Annie and Vernice, or as she's called, Nisi in the book. Annie's mother abandoned her when she was just an infant, and Nisi's mother was killed by her father. Both these girls formed this unbreakable bond since they were in their cradles. And when they grew up and they were, I think, 17 or 18, they went their separate ways. But they remain tethered to one another through writing letters and telling them what they are going through, what they're experiencing. Annie, for her the abandonment always played a very big role because she kind of gauged her self-worth, thinking that wasn't she worthy for her mother to come back and check on her. And Nisi is in Atlanta in Spelman College. This is, I think, also Tayari Jones's alma mater. And here she is seeing world with a different pair of glasses. There are people, they're young, who are coming from affluent backgrounds. The people are fighting for civic and social causes. This felt so big for her. I really liked how this book is about womanhood, about friendships, about motherhood, and how along the way, as they're discovering themselves, both the girls, niece and Annie, they found mother figures who were so empathetic towards them. And although they could never fill that gaping hole in their hearts, they were able to give them a momentary maternal love that they both were missing in their lives. I think that was very beautiful. It is set in 1940s and 1950s when racism and segregation was at its peak. And the author chooses to keep this in the background and focuses on the relationship between these two girls. I think the writing was exquisite. I think it was beautifully all these friendships and the people they met. It was wonderful to read those. However, I did feel that at times the prose became a little meandering, a little repetitive. I would have I would have liked a little bit of a tighter narrative. But overall, I really had a good time reading this book. It was quite emotional reading it, and towards the end, I was bawling. I gave this book 4 stars. My next book is The Happy Ever After playlist. It is book 2 in the Friend Zone series, and this is about Sloane. We do get to meet Sloane in the first book, where she's Christian's best friend, and a big and a major event takes place in that book where Sloane's fiance dies in an accident. So when this book starts, The Happy Ever After playlist, it's been 2 years since Sloane's fiance's accident, and she is grieving and she's mourning and is trying to come to normalcy. And she meets this very random dog, very cute random dog, and she knows it's not a stray. And she tracks it down to a person called Jason, who is an up-and-coming indie singer. When they meet, sparks fly and they fall for one another. The best thing about this book is Sloane. This character has been so well written. She's smart. She is a wonderful person. She is sensitive. She is driven. I really loved how this character was essayed in this book. And the best thing about this is the way Abby writes about grief. She doesn't lay it over thickly. She writes about it, and it hits you because you are feeling Sloane's pain. There are some chapters, there's some stanzas that really breaks your heart, and I felt that it was great writing. Jason, for MMC, he's again much like Josh, he's okay. Honestly, for me, this book was about Sloane and her dealing with her grief and returning to a normal life. So I gave this book 4.15 stars. The next book I want to talk about is A Bookbinder's Secret. This is set in 1901, Oxford, England, and we meet Lillian, or who's also known as Lily. She's 24 years of age and passionate about bookbinding, and she's very good at it as well. And she loves books in general. And one day she stumbles upon this not so well-known book with very sloppy binding, and it piques her interest. She starts kind of fiddling around with it, and she finds that in the secret compartment of this book, there is makes her even more curious. Now she wants to track down the other books and the other letters to get the whole picture of this love story, forbidden love story. And somewhere she kind of sees herself in these characters, in this character who's written this story. What she doesn't know is that there are other people with much more nefarious intentions who are also after the book and the story. The the best part about this book is that this is a mystery within a mystery. You are seeing how Lily has to find out these books and these letters as they're hidden because these people who are after them, they're kind of blackmailing her. And this sets her across England, and she's meeting other publishers, writers, other bookbinders. And also the story that is unraveled as she's discovering these pieces of this puzzle. I think it is so well done. If you're someone who wants to relish a well-crafted prose, and if you want a slow burn, a gradual build-up, I think this book is for you, because I truly enjoyed that. The author A.D. Bell definitely took her time to, first of all, investigate and teach herself about bookbinding, because it was quite important and integral in this book. And she doesn't spend a lot of time explaining how bookbinding is done, but in a very concise and a precise manner she writes about it, because it's important to know the anatomy of a bookbinding, because that's how you know where the letter is hidden. And it is so well done. And I think she really, again, like I said, it's a labor of love, because she took her time to paint early Edwardian England for us in Oxford, how the cobbled streets are there, and electricity is a new thing that has been introduced, and people are wary of it. I loved reading that. I really cherished that she was able to take us and transport us in 1901 England. And I loved it. It was such a good read. And yes, it is not fast-paced, but it is just rightly done. I really enjoyed this book. And I gave this book 4.25 stars. The next book I want to talk about is Dolly All the Time by Annabel Monaghan. This is the second book by this author that I read in last month. And I really liked this book. It was such a wonderful read for me. This book does have a romance. Dolly, who is at the cusp of turning 40, she is a wonderful mother, an amazing daughter, a very loving sister, and for me, best of all, is an amazing friend. I really loved her banter with her best friend. Yes, romance is a major plot in this, but I think the author was able to craft Dolly's character so well that she was not just a love interest to our male main character, but she was we saw this person as a whole, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, as a sister, and I really enjoyed reading that part. She is smart, she is very secure in who she is, she's confident but not cocky, and she's funny. And I had a wonderful time reading it. And like I said, the banter between her and her best friend, it is so relatable, it is hilarious. I truly enjoyed this book. I haven't read any other book by this author, but to me, compared to It's a Love Story and Dolly All the Time, I think I prefer Dolly All the Time. The next book I want to talk about is Honey Be Mine by Sarah T. Dubb. This is my second book by the author, the first one being Birding with Benefits, which I read a couple of years ago, and I loved that book. In Honey Be Mine, we meet Penny, who runs a bee farm, and she shares the wall of her farm and her house with this moody, broody, but very handsome neighbor, Xander Buras. And they don't have a very friendly first encounter. However, when they come to a truce, they become more friendly and eventually start falling for one another. This is cheesy done right. Yes, some dialogues are cheesy, but it just works. And Sarah T. Dubb knows how to make it work. What I also liked is that we see other aspects and other sides of the character, like Xander is a father to a teenage son. He's separated from his wife. That's why he's dating Penny. But the interactions he has with his son, the interactions he has with his wife, I think it gives another dimension to these characters, and I just love reading that. For Penny, we see how she has her meetings with her mom and her grandma, from whom she has inherited this bee farm. I really love reading this book. Like I said, it is romance with cheesiness done right, and I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. I really enjoyed it. And yes, it's steamy too, and again, it's steamy done right. So, and the other thing I want to say, that having read two books by the author, is that she brings a certain level of maturity in these adults, because I think at my age I do not want to read about miscommunication anymore. I want to read characters who are mature and who have a grown-up relationship. If you're looking for a book to give you a hug, Guncle is the one. This is about Patrick. Patrick is also Gup. And what is Gup? Gup is gay Uncle Patrick. When we meet him, he is a retired sitcom star, and he is now is a guardian to his niece and nephew after they lost their mother, Sarah. Sarah wasn't only his sister-in-law, but also his best friend when they were both in college. This book explores grief with so much depth, and it is so profound when you read how Patrick, who is not trying to be a parent to his niece and nephew, Macy and Grant, but rather a guardian, and he is letting them be. He is allowing them and giving them this safe space where they are not hounded or they're not pressurized to, grieve or mourn or get into a discipline or get into routine. I think that was the best part of the book. I love the interactions he has with the children, how he keeps on screaming, "This is Guncle rule number 1, this is Guncle rule number 2." And it was a lovely book. I truly had a lovely time reading this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is Woodworking by Emily St. James. This book gives us two perspectives of Erica and Abigail. Erica is a 35-year-old, recently divorced high school teacher and is also a closeted trans woman. And Abigail is 17 years of age and has just moved to Mitchell, South Dakota, and is the only trans girl. The best part about this book is that the author was able to provide such distinct voices to both these characters. Erica doesn't know whom to come out to until she learns about Abigail, who is in her class. And Abigail understands what lies ahead for Erica. She knows the trials and tribulations and the rocky road that lays ahead for Erica. She kind of becomes a guide to her. This book is set in 2016, and the author knows that the setup of the book is in a place that has more traditional, more conservative values. But she doesn't try to shun or shame that, and doesn't try to gloss over anything because it's set in because the book is set in 2016. What she's trying to tell us is that even when things are difficult, if you have your tribe, if you have people who believe in you, who love you, who support you, and you can find support from unexpected places, from unexpected people, it just gets a little easier. And that's the most beautiful part about this book, and I loved it. I gave this book 4.5 stars. The best book I read for the month of June is A Trade of Blood by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is book 3 in the Leviathan series. We are back with Anna and Din. Much like Sherlock Holmes and Watson, this is the crime-solving duo. Anna is a quirky and eccentric but exceptionally brilliant detective, and her assistant, Din, who has certain augmentations where he sniffs a vial and is able to register and memorize the crime scene, the interviews that they conduct, and when they have to solve the murder, he kind of blurts out everything to Anna. Much like Romeo and Juliet in this one, there is the children of two feuding families fall for one another, and one of them is found dead. Anna and Din have to solve this murder because then there might be civil unrest. Robert Jackson Bennett is a master at his craft because, yes, we have to solve this murder, but he's also very deftly able to weave in socioeconomic aspects, political aspects, environmental aspects into it. And he builds this big picture that you have to step back and just marvel at it. And that's his artistry, and I loved it. This one has been perhaps the best book in the trilogy so far. I will say that for every book he writes. And he will continue the series as long as we give it all the love that we can, because I cannot do without Anna and Din. I need multiple books. It is such a witty, clever, such an intelligent, and a brilliant storyline. I loved it so much. This was epic. So with this, we come to an end to my June wrap-up. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned in my wrap-up, and if you have any recommendations for me to read. I hope you had fun watching this video as much as I had fun making it for you all. Take good care of yourselves, and once again, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.